Well, what I hear you saying is the fourth car at Gibbs is still an option. Joe Gibbs was talking about this, and he made it sound like kind of a long shot.
The fourth car at Joe Gibbs Racing is always an option if sponsorship is there. I mean, if they can find a way to take care of Joey Logano.
Do they have a sponsor for Joey? Would they have had one had Carl come over?
I think they were talking to people, and I don't think anything was nailed down at this point. Some people had floated the idea that Napa might be shopping, but that turned out they're actually under contract to Michael Waltrip Racing through 2012.
I see.
And so they would not be an option. But I think Joe Gibbs Racing was certainly willing to run 4 cars if there was money to do it.
So in the Clint Boyer to Joe Gibbs Racing scenario, does that mean Richard Childress Racing goes back to 3 cars, or do they try to fill the 33?
No, I think they're trying to fill that seat as well because, I mean, at this point, I think they need to bring up drivers for that. I mean, look at their driver lineup. Jeff Burton at this point is to the point where he's starting to age out a little bit.
It seems that way. Certainly had a down year.
And you also look at the grandkids, Ty Dillon and Austin Dillon, both of whom are extremely good drivers. They're not ready for Cup yet, but I mean, Ty Dillon is an amazing performer on the racetrack, and contrary to popular belief, in the ARCA series, he's not getting equipment that's
vastly superior
to what the other guys in the series are running. He's just good. And Austin is really good too. And Austin, of course, has a great personality, represents for the sponsor, and so I think both of those kids are waiting in the wings.
Yeah, you get someone like that, boy, you got the sponsorship side, the business side down because they've grown up in the sport.
Exactly right, and so I think they're they're the future of Richard Childress Racing going forward. But an outlandish idea perhaps, but I wouldn't be that shocked to see the sort of Jeremy Mayfield for who was John Andretti car swap that took place a number of years ago when Cale Yarborough was the team owner. Andy Murstein, who is one of the partners in Richard Petty Motorsports, told me before the season when we were talking about adding cars to a team, he said he'd really like to hire Clint Boyer.
So that could be an option as well.
And so if he hires Clint, well, what happens to AJ in the 43 car? Maybe AJ goes over to Richard Childress Racing, because before AJ decided what he was going to do the last time, they had discussions. And Richard Childress likes AJ. So
very interesting. Now, what about Junior and what about Danica Patrick?
Okay, Junior will sign his contract before the end of the year. I don't really think he cares that much what's in it.
Good for him.
He just wants to be comfortable, and I think
he'll be comfortable.
I think he will be comfortable. I mean, he is the cash cow in terms of merchandise sales in the sport right now, and probably will continue to be. So he'll get the deal done. He doesn't want that going on next year in 2012 and have a contract year like Carl Edwards did. So, Kelly Earnhardt, his sister, is negotiating for him. She's a good negotiator, and she and Rick Hendrick and Marshall Carlson will get the deal worked out, and he'll be back with Hendrick Motorsports. Danica Patrick, I expect her to be full-time with JRM, with JR Motorsports next year, and I think they're just trying to hammer out details of possible Cup run. Will she run Cup at all, or won't she? I think there's probably going to be an 8 to 12 race deal with Stewart-Haas Racing, and I infer that from the way Tony talked about it when he was asked specifically whether or not Danica would race Cup for him, and basically said that he couldn't talk about it, didn't say it's not going to happen.
Right, and I can't talk about it means I'm talking about it behind closed doors.
So I'm not going to talk about it here.
Right.
I guess the only other two names that are out there are Brian Vickers and Mark Martin. It seems like Brian Vickers, there's not a lot of options out there for him.
Well, there hasn't been a lot of buzz about Brian, and Brian's certainly a capable driver, but he's had a down year this year too.
Yes, he has.
And Red Bull is still in the process of trying to sell its assets and its team for a fairly hefty price tag. So, if that doesn't happen, there's a ride that goes away. We know Casey Kane's leaving and going to Hendrick Motorsports, so really the future of Red Bull is very much up in the air, and Brian's contract with them is up this year anyway.
Yeah.
So, Where does he go? There just aren't that many seats around. And Mark Martin, I mean, there are possibilities for Mark. Jay Fry at Red Bull would love to have Mark Martin drive for him, but that's contingent upon the team being sold and perhaps moving to Chevrolet from Toyota and working with Hendrick Motorsports, with whom Jay Fry has a long-time relationship. Mark Martin, I think James Finch is going to be looking for a driver as well. But the question is, could James, with his operation, pay Mark what Mark would want to get? And that's questionable at this point.
What about Mark Martin helping nurse Danica along at Stewart-Haas in a split ride?
Also a possibility, and jumping back at least part-time into the Nationwide Series and competing with Kyle Busch for that all-time wins record, which would be interesting.
Yeah, would be very interesting. Well, Reid Spencer of Sporting News, thank you, sir, for stopping by. A lot to think about. A lot of dominoes still to fall.
Oh, absolutely, and we're surprised that they're all still standing.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.